Hey everybody, and good afternoon. And I wanted to do a quick video talking about my favorite jazz label, and that has got to be Riverside. This is an album called Great Jazz Artists Play the Compositions of Jerome Kern. It's got some great main players on there, but also great sidemen as well. Of course, Sonny Rollins, Wes Montgomery, Red Garland, Chet Baker, Cannonball Adderley and his brother Nat, Bill Evans. You know, those are the kind of the main big names, but as the sidemen, we've got Paul Chambers, fantastic, Philly Joe Jones, Sam Jones. What else? We've got Roy McCurdy, Yusef Lateef, Jimmy Heath, Jimmy Cobb, Wynton Kelly. I mean, really, truly, some top players in their day are on this thing. And that really is the first thing I really love about Riverside, is the fact that they had such big name players playing for them. Of course, beyond that, and I sort of have a list I made, we've got Thelonious Monk, Earl Hines, Art Blakey, Ben Webster, Joe Zawinul and Herbie Mann. Dexter Gordon, I think, did a couple releases on the Jazzland album, which was a sort of subsidiary, kind of sister label of Riverside. Red Garland, Fats Navarro, Lee Morgan, Benny Golson, and Eddie Davis. Yeah, and these are some of the big names that I just recognize and I made, but there were far more besides. And that was kind of a lot of it. Big thing about it is they had such big names playing for the album and making great music. And then secondarily, the other thing I really like about Riverside is that a lot of their albums, regardless of age, I mean, this thing right here is almost 65 years old at this point, kind of, sort of. We're getting near 65, and it still sounds fresh. I mean, it's in great condition, but the music, the production, the you know, just the overall sound is still very clear, still very fresh. It doesn't sound dated. I can't say the same thing about a lot of Blue Note releases, although they sound great and you can really appreciate the musicianship. But I also can't say the same thing about a lot of Impulse or Verve or Prestige or especially Pacific Jazz. A lot of that, again, it sounds great and you can appreciate the musicianship of, you know, people playing and obviously of the music itself. But a lot of it does sound dated. It kind of sounds old-fashioned or old-sounding. Whereas a lot of Riverside releases, they still sound fresh. They still sound almost like they could have been recorded yesterday. And I'm not sure why. I never really looked up the production of Riverside releases and kind of how they went about doing that. But I do find that generally, as sort of a rule, is most Riverside releases that I have, and I have quite a few, do kind of still retain this sort of fresh quality to them. And lastly, one of the great things about Riverside is a lot of their albums and releases are still available relatively cheaply. I mean, you go back and some of the other labels I mentioned, you know, a lot of the OG, the original release, Blue Note releases and Impulse releases and Verve and Pacific Jazz. Well, Pacific Jazz, not so much, but a lot of these, you know, Argo and Cadet and quite a few others, a lot of them are outrageously, ungodly expensive. You know, but Riverside, for whatever reason, and there are a few releases of Riverside that do command high prices. Some of the Cannonball Adderleys, like Know What I Mean, that kind of thing, they do command high prices. But by and large, a lot of Riverside releases you can pick up fairly cheap. And, you know, under 20 bucks, you know, 25. This thing here, even though if you look on Discogs, it normally goes for around 20 to 30 bucks, depending on condition. This one's absolutely fantastic condition, and I got it for $4 at a thrift store today. So absolutely tremendous. And actually, this series, it was the Pro Composers series. They released, basically, it was a lot of their main players basically covering composer songs. There was, of course, Jerome Kern, and there were a few others. I forget the names, but anyway, basically you see in here, it's a woman's feet. And then if you had the others, you had sort of her middle of her body, and then the other one was her head. And I guess you could line them up and you'd have the whole lady laying out, which was kind of cool, that kind of thing. It's kind of a sort of a gimmick, of course, but it's kind of cool at the same time. But anyway, you know, that's one of the things I love also about Riverside is, of course, their artwork and sort of the whole, what's the mystique of the record label itself. It's just a shame the album closed down as quickly as it did. I mean, you know, it only ran for, you know, what, 15, 20 years, something like that. And it basically effectively shut down in 64, 65, somewhere in there. And yeah, it's kind of a shame. They were fantastic and they did a lot of great work. And of course, they had a lot of beautiful musicians to make the work. So yeah, my favorite record label, Riverside. What is your favorite record label? For jazz anyway, down below.